So we have a really, really exciting program for dinner. Van Jones is here, and I'm not going to introduce him. I'm going to leave that to my colleague, who I'll introduce in a moment. But we're really excited about the program. It's been a great day, at least from my perspective. I hope you've had a great day. And I'm just really glad that you're all here. It's been great to hear the conversations. I want to just take a minute and thank the staff of the hotel, who I think have just done a phenomenal job. And I also just want to thank, again, the staff of CEP, who I know I'm a little bit biased, but I also think that they've done a phenomenal job. We're really lucky, as Grant said this morning at CEP, to have an outstanding board and a board that really, really works and works it. And one of our board members is Vince Staley, who is the head of Media Impact Funders, but was at CERDNA at the moment that CEP received its very first funding. And Ed was the executive director, and Vince was a program director for the nonprofit sector program. And I mentioned without Barbara Kibbe and that initial grant funding, we probably wouldn't have been able to get started. And it's certainly true of Vince and Ed and CERDNA's support early on. And really, ever since, Vince has been, the best kind of return on investment in terms of how much we've paid him and all that he's done for CEP. And he's made a huge contribution to the program of this conference. And I'm just really grateful, Vince, for everything that you've done and for all your colleagueship and support. So I'm going to turn it over to Vince Staley.
Thank you. Thank you, Phil. And it really is my privilege to be a board member of this organization and a privilege to introduce our speaker this evening. Before I do, I want to recognize a very important group of people here tonight who might not get the recognition they always deserve, and that's you. Everyone else here who hasn't been thanked otherwise, everyone who's come to this conference. Give yourself a round of applause. Seriously, I know that's pandering, but you've been working hard all day, and I think you deserve, that kind of support. So more than any other philanthropic gatherings, this conference is a working meeting that really stretches the audience, I think. More than other gatherings, it's a conference where active learning takes place. And as my wise board colleague, Lynn Perry-Wooten, pointed out this morning, the capital L in leadership is learning. Yesterday, in our board meeting, Lynn also offered a very helpful insight into the culture of philanthropy. When we're really serious about our work, unlike most other sectors, we stay up late thinking about more work to do. It's kind of sad, but I think quite true. So Lynn doesn't say a lot in board meetings, but what she does say is money in the bank. Now, Grant Oliphant has already warned me on my excessive use of metaphors in our meetings. So from here on in, I'm going to go on a metaphor moratorium, or what I like to call a metaphoratorium. So back to our speaker. Many of you know Van Jones, either from your TV sets. We all see him on where he's a regular contributor on CNN, or perhaps more directly through the work over the years. I'm tempted to say he needs no introduction, but the last time I said that, I looked down and misplaced my notes, and he basically didn't get one. So that's not this time. I got my introduction. So a quick glance at Van's bio reveals a truly impressive person. He's author of 2 New York Times best-selling books, The Green Collar Economy and Rebuild the Dream. He's a Yale-educated attorney, and he worked for a brief but important time at the White House in the early days of the Obama administration, helping to set a course for our nation's policies in green jobs and renewable energy. He was also founder of 4 successful nonprofit groups leading the way in social and environmental work and progress. And here I would just point out, and Van would surely agree with me, that he did not do all this alone. Particularly in setting up these important organizations, the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights, Color of Change, Green for All, and now, more recently, Rebuild the Dream, Van was supported early and often by courageous leaders in philanthropy. All the way back to 1994, Van was a fellow at Echoing Green for his work setting up the Ella Baker Center. And I first encountered Van when I was working at the Cerdna Foundation, and my colleague Robert Sherman in the Effective Citizenry program supported Van's efforts to apply a structural racism lens and analysis to the problem of juvenile justice. And that's 21 years ago. And then later, Van turned his attention to economic development and job creation to create a path towards environmental sustainability. And colleagues in the environment program, also at Cerdna, also supported his work at Green for All. So I was really impressed that our colleagues were able to sort of make that transition and go across program to continue that support. And the point of all this is to reflect on an important theme in this conference already, leadership. As Lynn pointed out, leaders are not born, they have to work at it. And we need to invest in their development, and when we do, if we're really very lucky, our investments will pay off in someone like Van Jones. But if we want to see big returns on our leadership investments, we have to adjust our risk tolerance, we have to move out of our comfort zone, and we can't just invest in safe organizations. We can't just tuck our money under the mattress. Sorry, Grant, for breaking my metaphoritorium, and welcome Van to our conference. Thank you, sir.
How are y'all doing? That's good. Everybody full? Happy? All right, we'll give another round of applause to the good servers and people who've been working hard all night for us. We appreciate you. Yeah. Well, I tell you, it's good to be here. I see a lot of friends. Some of those things you're just saying, Vince, brought back a lot of memories. I think I should thank you all on behalf of some of those organizations. The Ella Baker Center for Human Rights, almost 20 years old now, which was just something that, as a young guy, a friend of mine, we got together and said we want to do something about police brutality and juvenile justice. That organization is still thriving, has helped to close 5 youth prisons in California, and helped to cut the prison population of young people by 80% in this state. So that's the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights. So thank you for supporting that organization. In the floodwaters of Katrina, a guy named James Rucker, who just had left MoveOn.org and was looking for something to do, we cut on TV and saw an American city underwater. We worked together to launch something called Color of Change. That organization now is the largest and fastest growing online civil rights organization in the world. And you may have heard of somebody named Trayvon Martin because of the work of that organization. So thank you for supporting Color of Change and also Green for All. It's so funny. Our opponents, those of us who are concerned about justice, if they get a bad idea, they stick with it forever. They thought the Voting Rights Act was a bad idea when it passed, and they kept fighting, and now they took a big chunk out of it. They get a bad idea, they stick with it forever. Green jobs was an idea that was fashionable for a second, then people decided it wasn't fashionable, and we ran off from it. But what nobody knows is the solar industry is growing faster than pretty much anything in the country. Green for All itself is responsible for 10,000 green jobs in low-income communities to this day. And while we have 80,000 coal miners in America, and God bless them, they take risks with their lives and their lungs and their limbs every day, 80,000 of them, we respect them. But there's 120,000 solar workers and 140,000 wind energy workers in the United States right now. So green jobs may not be popular on TV, but it's creating real jobs for real people. So thank you for your support for green jobs and for Green for All. So why aren't we all thrilled? I mean, if you look at the annual reports from our organizations, you would have to conclude that we are living in a utopia. We're all meeting our metrics. We've got amazing anecdotes. The videos are so compelling. So why aren't we all thrilled? I want to talk real talk. We're all grown-ups. We're all friends here. Something's not working. Something's not working. The Obama era, as hard as this is to get our heads wrapped around, is almost over. The next era is up to us to build. And I don't think we're going to do a great job if we don't have a real evaluation of what we just went through. I get a chance to be on TV now, which is actually a very small part of my day, by the way. I spend most of my time working on the Dream Corps and Rebuild the Dream, which I'll talk to you about. But it gives me a particular window. I was on the ground in Ferguson. I had the opportunity to be standing there outside before the decision came down that they weren't going to charge the officer who was involved in the death of Michael Brown. Now, in this room, we may have different opinions about whether or not the decision was warranted to not charge the officer. There's no point in our debating about that. People have different views. But what's not debatable is the impact on the young people in Ferguson who were all standing outside about 8 o'clock that night. There was a speaker, just like that speaker, outside, blaring out to this crowd of about 400, 500, mostly young people, mostly African American, mostly a certain kind of poor. These were working poor folks. See, Ferguson is not East St. Louis. Ferguson is where people get up every day to go to their first job. They go home and take a nap, and then they go to their second job. This is where the folks who are, when you go to CVS and you see somebody stand there in a security guard uniform at 1 o'clock in the morning, their bedroom community is Ferguson. I saw people marching, African-American women marching in their Sunday best, but if you looked at their shoes, they probably hadn't had a new pair of shoes in 4 or 5 years. So this was a community barely hanging on economically, but very, very proud of the fact that they at least had something. And they were out there, and their kids were out there, and if you looked in their eyes before the announcement was made, there was a little light. Not much. If you could imagine a big house that's empty and dark, but in the basement, there's a candle lit. Just that much light. And then the announcement came out, and you saw the lights go out. All those young people. Now, I know enough about the law and legality to be able to explain it to people, but what it meant to them was, we don't matter. Nobody cares about us. We've been out here marching. We've been trying to get something done about something that happened to a kid who, for whatever his faults and flaws, was not in a gang. Michael Brown, whatever his faults and flaws, he was going to college that Monday. And if one of our kids who was going to college that Monday can't somehow survive a police encounter and have somebody do something about it, maybe we don't matter. Now, I compared the way I felt looking in the eyes of those young people with the way I had felt just a few years earlier standing out there with many of you when Obama got sworn in. And I said, how the hell did we get from that bright morning with Obama being sworn in as President of the United States, and whether you agree with his policies or not, that was a great moment. People around the world were crying. That was a great moment. How do we get from that moment to that night. Now, as many of you know, I went on to get tear gassed. So my empathy for others quickly went away. And I would suggest to you that if you're going to get tear gassed, don't do it on national television. Because it stays on YouTube and your friends make fun of you on Facebook. So, the other thing about getting tear gassed is, by the way, if you did not know how much you like two things, you will learn quickly when you get tear gassed. One is, it is amazing how much I enjoy being able to both see and breathe. Both of these activities, it turns out, are much more important to me than I ever knew. But I digress. I got on the plane, we thought we had everything we needed. 2009. We had 60 votes in the Senate, speaking now as a Democrat, 60 votes in the Senate, Pelosi running the House, Barack Obama as president at the height of his global power and influence. And we thought we could actually be able to do a lot. And a lot got done. I don't want to take anything away from it. But nobody here is thrilled. I got a chance to work there for 6 months. Best 6 months of my life, followed by the worst 2 weeks. But if you think you love the country, hold it in your arms for about 6 months. So when I left, and I watched all of the dreams slowly fade out, I had to ask myself some questions about my life, about whether it's worth continuing to try and do stuff. Because from 63, with the March on Washington, until Obama got sworn in, that was 40 plus years of black politics, all saying either protest and try to make the president do better, or maybe someday you get a black president, and we did all of it, and we came up short. And when I say we came up short, I want to talk a little bit about the black community right now. Because it's become fashionable for us not to talk about African Americans in particular, in some ways because Obama really wanted that. And there's been a silence from the black community. But the Obama era of black silence on issues that matter to us is over. If you don't believe me, look at television right now. It's over. How can we be in a situation where at the end of the second term of the first black president, the most powerful cry in the country is Black Lives Matter? How do you reconcile that? That you're at the end of the second term of the first black president, and yet the young people feel that they have to express to the world that our lives matter. Why are they doing that? Let me just throw you some numbers at you, and then let me tell you what I think we can do. But it requires a complete rethinking of what we've done up until now. First of all, these young people, you talk about Ferguson, you talk about West Baltimore, you're talking about some of the most policed and incarcerated zip codes and area codes in the country. What does that mean? We don't like to talk about this, but at some point you've got to deal with the fact that mass incarceration is a real thing. We have 5% of the world's population. 25% of the world's prisoners in the United States. Let's say it again. That means 1 out of every 4 people locked up anywhere in the world are locked up here in the United States. 1 out of 4 people shackled. 1 out of 4 people with their hands wrapped around bars, looking out, wanting to be free. 1 out of 4 people are locked up in the United States. We only have 5% of the world's population. And it's worse than that. It's worse than that. Disproportionately African American, disproportionately Latino, and almost universally poor people. Almost universally people who just don't have enough money to get a good lawyer. So what does that mean? The numbers for black young men in this country are shocking. There are more African Americans locked up in the United States right now than were enslaved in 1850. More African Americans in chains behind bars today than were locked up in 1850. We lock up a bigger number and a bigger percentage of our black male population than South Africa locked up during apartheid. Now, that's abstract, unless you're a young African American trying to make your way. Now, the problem about it is, and we'll get to the solution, but the problem about it is, most of what these folks are being locked up for, they're being locked up for a lot of nonviolent drug offenses. Now, I have a particular relationship to this issue of nonviolent drug offenses. I went to Yale Law School. 80% of the campus were nonviolent drug offenders. And about 90% of the faculty. So I've seen nonviolent drug offenders up close, man. And the system would come down hard on folks and send them to rehab. So you can imagine my shock and dismay when I left the Ivy League and got to Oakland, where the same age kids doing the same drugs were getting 15, 20, and 25-year prison sentences. Now, kids aren't stupid. They know that they're not doing anything worse than the other kid, but here they are. The problem is when you get out of prison, now you're in economic prison. You don't have to call somebody the N-word. Just call them a felon. Just call them a felon. They can't get a job. They can't rent an apartment. They can't get a student loan. Most of the time they can't vote. And this is now happening on a mass scale. You got 10 million Americans who can't vote because they all have felonies, disproportionately. So that's why you have kids out there saying Black Lives Matter, because this is happening under even a black president. Let's not talk about the young people. Let's talk about the older people. Let's talk about black middle class people. Have you ever noticed, this is good. I'm going to give you a quick test on your facility and your knowledge of black culture. You're going to shock yourself with how much you know. African American, fill in the blank, athlete, pop star, gets their first big contract, their first big payday, they're doing their first press conference. They say, I'm so happy to get this money, this payday, this contract, and I just want you to know I'm going to buy my mama a house. You are now honorary Negroes. Thank you very much. Give yourself a round of applause. One more time. I'm going to buy my mama a house. Why is that? Think about that. They never say, I'm going to buy my mama some stocks and bonds. I mean, that would be smarter. Never say that. Why not? For a long time, we weren't allowed to own property. For a long time, we were property. It's uncomfortable to mention this, but I have to just be honest. It's very important. I'm a ninth-generation American. Ninth-generation American. I'm the first person in my family that was born with all my rights. I was born in 1968. I'm the first. My cousin Kenya was born in 65 before the Voting Rights Act. She was born without all. I'm the first person, 9 generations, born with all my rights. People talk about segregation. You guys always, why do you keep playing the race card? My God, Van Jones. That was 1,000 years ago. Could y'all move on? My God. My parents were married under segregation. My mama, my father born and married under segregation. This is not a gazillion years ago. And we weren't allowed to own property. So, and if you're a middle-class black person, the one thing you know for sure is that you don't want to be like your ne'er-do-well cousin who runs the numbers. You don't want to be playing the numbers. You want to be gambling. See, we good, respectable, middle-class black folks, so you don't want to be gambling. And to us, the stock market looks like a bunch of gambling. That don't look secure to me. So I'm going to buy my mama a house. Banks singled us out for subprime loans even when we could qualify for the other ones. Which meant when the crash came, 50 to 60% of black wealth was wiped out. If you were in the stock market, you're back up 2x. If all your wealth is in housing, you're still down. We're still down. So you have this incredible pain in the black community. And it's a pain that we haven't felt comfortable speaking about publicly because, well, after all, it's almost embarrassing. Well, it's like, well, you got a black president. What are you complaining about? And so you have people hurt but can't holler. Hurt but can't holler for the past 6 years. These young folks starting to holler now. They're starting to holler. And they don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican or a liberal or a conservative or white or black or purple or Smurf or Muppet. They want to understand why they don't have a shot. You talk to every one of these kids at Ferguson. I was on the ground in Baltimore. Every one of these kids. Once they'll talk one sentence or two about the police problem and 20 minutes about the economic problem. I want to be a barber. I want to be an auto mechanic. I want to be a nurse. Can you help me? And you got Congress people standing there and can't open their mouth with an answer. So look, my dad was born in 1944, Memphis, Tennessee, under segregation. He joined the military to get out. Everybody else was running away from the military. My dad ran into the military in order to get out of Orange Mound, Memphis. He put himself through college. He put his little brother through college. He put his cousin through college. And then he put me and my sister through college. And my father was very clear. He said, listen, nobody can give anybody anything. If you're poor, you get a poor kid, nobody can give a poor kid anything that's going to stop him from being poor. You can't give them money and stop them from being poor. You give them money, it'll stop them from being broke. But if they're still poor in their skills, if they're still poor in their mind and their heart, they'll be broke again tomorrow. You can't give a kid anything that'll stop them from being poor. Every kid's got to climb that ladder out of poverty on their own. That's his experience. And yet, he said, that's the responsibility of every young person to do that. But grown people have responsibilities too. Our responsibility is to make sure that every kid has a ladder to climb. That's the responsibility of grown folks. And the problem we have right now is that despite having all these wonderful opportunities that we enjoy and having a wonderful black president and a wonderful black first lady and all the best intentions of the world, you go to Ferguson, you go to Baltimore, and you show me a rung. You show me a rung. West Baltimore, they closed the 2 youth centers last summer, and guess where we are this spring? So I decided, look, I'm gonna throw out the playbook. Let's try some stuff. So got some friends here. I want you to give a round of applause to my colleagues. Somebody said I don't do it alone because I got help from philanthropists. That's true. But also have help from actual competent managers and leaders. So that's helpful. Simone Sneed, wave your hand around, and Nisha Anand, wave your hand around. Give them a round of applause. They actually do the work. They actually do the work. At some point, the women will give the speeches and the men will do some work, but tonight, I want to brag a little bit on the work that we're trying to do. So look, I'm good at what I do. I talk. I come up with good ideas, but I've always, if you look at the Ella Baker Center, if you look at Green for All, if you look at Color of Change, I've always found good people to actually get some work done, get some results. So what we decided to do was to consolidate some stuff we thought might make a difference on a platform we called the Dream Corps. Dream Corps, kind of like Marine Corps, but more fabulous. Okay. So, and we're supporting 3 initiatives. I stole that from Simone. We're supporting 3 initiatives that we think might have a chance. And I say it not just to brag on our work, but just to talk about how we've got to break out of these paradigms that are not working. Number 1, so our slogan at Dream Corps is simple: close prison doors, open doors of opportunity into a green economy. Very simple. Close prison doors, open doors of opportunity into a green economy. Number 1, close prison doors. Democrats have been horrible on this. At some point, we got to tell the truth. Democrats have been horrible on criminal justice. Bill Clinton was a mass incarcerator. 1 million people behind bars in 92 when he came in, 2 million when he left in 2000. Both political parties built this massive incarceration industry, and they knew what they were doing. And frankly, many of us stood by and let it happen, including many civil rights organizations that said, hey, listen, we got to deal with these crack dealers, so let it rip. We decided that we would do something interesting. We launched a campaign called Cut 50, hashtag Cut 50, a campaign to cut the prison population in half in 10 years, working with Republicans and Democrats. My number 1 partner on this, as you guys probably know by now, Newt Gingrich. I love saying Newt's name. For some reason, when Newt's name comes out of my mouth, people's eyes just, I want to be honest now. I mean, Newt and I fight on TV, but we get along. We don't agree on anything. I mean, we literally don't agree on one single thing. Except prisons. Newt says, how can conservatives support this? I said, do say more. He said, we built a prison system that is now a big, failed government bureaucracy. It's a big, failed government bureaucracy that actually gets more money the worse job that it does. If you're a prison warden and you send 10 people out on Friday and they're so hurt and unprepared that on Monday they come back with 2 of their best friends, you don't get fired, you get a budget increase. He said there's no conservative can possibly support. The financial incentives are completely misaligned. It'd be one thing if you're a warden and you send 10 people home and they stay gone for 3 years, and then you get more money because your program worked. That's not how it works. So I said, well, this is very interesting. I said, we found the ones, we're going to talk about this a lot. Because we can't talk about nothing else. And we work here together at CNN. So we had lots of conversations about criminal justice. Then, other people came on the show. Rand Paul. See, y'all weren't ready for Rand. So you heard about the Newt thing, so you were ready for that. You're like, Rand, you're like, oh no, I just can't. See, we gotta break out. I'm serious. When I say break out, I say gotta break out. Rand Paul, the libertarians, they say, listen, we're against NSA. We're against the surveillance. We're against over-militarizing the police. And we don't think that you should be putting people in jail in large numbers around this drug war. It's none of the government's business. Fiscal conservatives, like Newt Gingrich, say no. And then their governors, Rick Perry, Texas, closed prisons. Governor Deal, Georgia, closing prisons. Kasich, Ohio, big criminal justice reform package. Republican governors closing prisons. Jerry Brown hasn't moved. We had to have a ballot measure in California to get the same thing done. Fiscal conservative Republicans say they don't want to raise taxes to pay for more prisons. The libertarians say they believe in individual liberty. They don't want more prisons. And then the Christian evangelicals, who from my point of view as a Christian, are wrong on women's right to choose. And you're welcome. And from my point of view as a Christian, are wrong on marriage equality. I can go on. This is the best part of the speech. But they're right on criminal justice. Yes. They're saying if every soul matters to the Creator, how can we treat people this way? And if we have redemption and second chances in our faith, how can somebody make a mistake at 19 years old and when they're 90, they're still called a felon, can't vote, can't get a job, can't get a student loan, can't rent an apartment? That's not redemption. Well, hold on a second, folks. That's the whole Republican coalition. Fiscal conservatives, libertarians, and social conservatives agree with you. But we have a politics that said that we're just going to tribalize everything. And I'm in the red tribe, or I'm in the blue tribe, and Newt's in the red tribe, and we can't do anything but fuss and fight and argue. So we said, listen, Newt, if you're all serious, let's do a public summit. Don't talk to me pretty behind the closed door. Y'all, some people here know what that's about. Oh, you talk real pretty behind the closed door. Take me out in public. So we had a date. So I said, ew. So you got to break out. It was called the Bipartisan Summit on Criminal Justice Reform. Newt and I thought we would have, I say Newt and I like we did any work. The people who did the work were sitting in here, but anyway. Newt and I thought we'd have about 100 people for about 2 hours. We had 700 people, 8 hours, 10 Congress people, both sides of the aisle, 2 cabinet secretaries, Eric Holder and Perez. The President of the United States sent a video. Governor Deal came up from Georgia personally, Republican. And it was, and I'm going to tell you something, if you close your eyes, you could not tell the Republicans from the Democrats. Now, the Koch brothers were there, Alec was there, all these people we fight on everything. And guess what it turned out? We're still fighting on everything else. And it's fine. I got on the phone with Mark Holden, who works for the Koch brothers. I said, I was just on the phone talking about how to beat you on Keystone. He's like, I was on the call talking about how to beat you on Keystone. But let's talk about this bill. It turns out that you can actually work with people that you don't agree with on the stuff that you do agree with. So we've got, coming up next month, I'm proud to say, coming out of that summit, there will be a bipartisan, comprehensive criminal justice reform bill introduced on the floor of the House to, for the first time, roll back mass incarceration. So that is real. That's real. That's real. Number 2, also Dream Corps. Close prison doors, open doors of opportunity. We said, listen, where are the jobs going to come from? Everybody knows it's technology. Silicon Valley says that they're going to be 1 million workers short. 1 million workers short in 8 years. Now, when I say Silicon Valley, I mean that, from Austin to Boston, the whole tech sector. Okay. Ain't 1 million people in Silicon Valley, but the whole tech sector, they're going to be 1 million workers short. MIT can't fix that problem by itself. Stanford can't fix 1 million worker shortfall by itself. So we said, hold on a second. Open doors of opportunity. Why don't we figure out a way to train up 100,000 young adults of color to take that on, to become a part of this high-tech future? So we launched something called Yes We Code. Sound clever, man. So we launched something called Yes We Code. We got Google and Facebook and Prince and all these guys. Lauryn Hill, long list of people, exclusive people in this room, Ford Foundation and Kellogg and others. So listen, 100,000 young adults of color could be trained to take those jobs. I got 1 million African American kids every weekend playing basketball. Why? Why is there 1 million African American kids? Huh?
Their only way out. They think it's their only way out.
They think it's their only way out. 1 million African American kids. They're not getting paid to do that. They're out there working on their jump shot, working on their free throws, morning to night. 1 million black kids. And the NBA hires 15 kids a year. There's only 450 people in the NBA all total, 450. So you got 1 million black kids trying out for 15 jobs. Meanwhile, if we're not careful, we'll have 15 little nerdy black Urkels ready for 1 million tech jobs. Now, again, you got to break out. That's not exactly racism. That's not Officer Darren Williams' fault. That's not hands up, don't shoot. That's African Americans applying maximum effort against minimum opportunity and not being helped or encouraged to apply, and at the same time applying minimum effort against maximum opportunity. We can do something about that. Now, you don't have to fix every public school in America to fix that. But when you apply maximum effort against minimum opportunity, minimum effort against maximum opportunity, you're going to lose even if you win. And so what we said was the problem is very, very simple. It's not a tough problem. Nobody in the black community, Latino community, Native American community, and most underrepresented Asian communities, Filipinos, Samoans, etc., not one grandmama in any of those communities was ever told a simple fact, which is that with 6 months of training, your kid could be making $70,000 a year starting out as a coder. No college degree, get one if you can, but if you don't have a college degree, with 6 months training, you can get a job now in tech right now making $70K. Now, the reason I know no grandmama in our communities was ever told that, because if grandmama knew, it'd be some coding going on, okay? There would be some serious coding going on. So we're now well on our way with this campaign. We raised about $3 million for Oakland. We've attracted the top 5 boot camps in the world that teach this stuff. We've partnered now with about 37 Silicon Valley employers, and we're going to build a job training pipeline from Oakland to Silicon Valley and show the world that we got to stop wasting genius. Some of these kids could be the next Mark Zuckerbergs, the next Marissa Myers, the next Sheryl Sandbergs, and they should be given a chance. So we're doing Yes We Code as well. You got to break out of assuming the only way to get a successful outcome is to fix all the public schools and then figure out a way to pay for 4 years of college and then hope there's a job on the back end. There are people in this part of the country, they don't brag on the college they graduated from. I meet these kids in Silicon Valley now, they tell you the college they dropped out of. I'm not saying black and brown kids shouldn't go to college, but I'm saying there should be as many options for our kids as there are for others. Last thing I'll say is this. Close prison doors, open doors of opportunity into a green economy. We got one last chance on climate. President of the United States this summer is going to roll out rules and regulations to cut carbon, to cut earth-destroying pollution from his EPA. When that happens, you're going to see all hell break loose, because the polluters are going to do what they always do, and they're going to go get black and brown and poor people to say, my bills are going to go up and I don't want it. There'll be a backlash alliance between polluters and poor people, and the people who could benefit the most from getting rid of all this pollution will be the ones tricked into leading the fight against it. I promise you it's going to happen. It happened in California when we rolled out rules here. So we got Green for All, that beautiful campaign, made it a part of our overall effort, and we met with the White House, the two top staff people of the White House, the head of the EPA, and the leadership of the Congressional Black Caucus, the Congressional Asian Caucus, the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, and the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and we sat down and we said, look, let's for once do the right thing before somebody else does the wrong thing. And we're rolling out a campaign that's going to get African American, Latino, and Asian American power players, including about 1,000 black churches, going to our constituencies first, black media, Latino media, first, and saying the president's climate plan can take asthma inhalers out your little girls' pockets. The president's plan can get solar panels put up on your roof and can prevent more Katrinas. Don't let anybody tell you different. And what we found is that the clean energy companies want to stand with us. This idea that we can't work together because the clean energy companies just only want to put up solar panels for white people and they don't want to work in poor black communities. When we went to them, they said, we want to work with you. We just don't know how. Nobody ever talked to us. We talk about each other. So you're going to see now not a backlash alliance between polluters and poor people, but a green growth alliance with clean energy companies standing next to black preachers, standing next to Latino celebrities, standing next to EPA administrators, saying we can bring more work and more wealth and more health to our communities with a green economy than we ever could under this old pollution-based economy. All of that, hey, yeah, I'll take that up there. All of that still won't be enough. But I see a future politics. If we're willing to be numerically specific, we said, listen, we want to double the number of people of color in solar jobs and go and drive a tenfold increase in the number of homeowners of color with solar panels on their rooftop, so it's visible and real. And the clean energy company is saying we want to work on, we want to be with you on that. If you make it numerically specific, we didn't say close some prisons, we said close half. We didn't say train some people, we said train 100,000. If you put out a goal that's numerically specific and tough, that nobody can do by themselves, what you do is you drive a politics of partnership. A politics of partnership. And sometimes the partners will surprise you. But as for me, and I'll move to my close, I'm a dad. I'm a father. I have 2 little boys. My youngest boy never got to meet my father. He was in utero when my dad died. My dad never got to see President Obama get sworn in. But the only things that made my father smile on his deathbed was looking up at TV and seeing that Senator Obama campaigning and making everybody so proud, and seeing my older boy. From his deathbed, that's what he saw. He saw that Senator Obama. He'd look at him, he'd give me the thumbs up. Every time he came on, he'd give me the thumbs up. He'd point, give me the thumbs up. He believed in it. He didn't believe in a politician. He believed in the idea that the country was much better than anybody knew. And all of us believe the same thing. And none of us have gone anywhere. We're all still here. We all have the same hope. We all have the same belief. We might be a little bit older. President Obama, a lot older. Hopefully a little bit wiser. But there is an opportunity for those same young people who are out there despondent in Ferguson and who are out there outraged in Baltimore to be not at the margin of the society and an object of our fear, but the center of our politics. If we put them at the center of our politics and we build the partnerships that are required to deliver real change and benefits to them, black faces in high places don't make nobody free. It's when you do something for those young people, we can stop wasting genius in this country, and we can unleash a generation of creativity and talent and passion and ability. And those young people, if we start trying to bring out the best in them, they will bring out the best in us. Thank you very much. Thank you.